Welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast about movies and characters that make us feel seen. Today, my co-host is author, designer, and cartographer Tim Leong. Tim's creative direction has influenced some of the most iconic print and digital covers of our time, featuring the likes of Stephen Colbert, Margot Robbie, and Lil Nas X, among, God, so many others. He has also penned a series of books called Super Graphic, which is a compilation of fun and in-depth infographics exploring the corners of the Star Wars universe and comic books. His most recent release is the Marvel Super Graphic, a visual guide to the Marvel Comics universe. Not cinematic, that is comics. The book explores 85 years of Marvel Comics history through pie charts, bar graphs, Venn diagrams, scatter plots, timelines, and story arc guides. So if you are a typography nerd, if you're a font nerd, if you're a design nerd, if you're a comics nerd, it all comes together in this book for you. There's everything from a size guide to your favorite heroes and villains to a geographic map of Manhattan that pinpoints spots like Avengers Tower. It is truly something to, wait for it, marvel at. Turning the page, let's get into my interview with Tim Leong. I get to have so many special days on the Feeling Seen podcast. And today is one of those special days because I'm getting to talk to somebody who I've known for, my God, at this point, it has to be a decade or more.
At least.
And within this decade, I have known this author, this creative director, to work at Wired Magazine, which is where I met him. He went on to an illustrious career at Entertainment Weekly, brought you some photo shoots that I know you love and I know I love from the past. And he is also, throughout that entire time, he founded Comic Foundry, a quarterly comics magazine starting in 2007. And comics and design have been such a massive through line throughout this person's work. You might have seen their books around very big bookstores like Barnes & Noble, perhaps Super Graphic, a visual guide to the comic book universe, Star Wars Super Graphic. Tim Leong, what else do the people need to know about you before we get started?
I mean, that's a lot.
It feels like it was a good lineup.
That was good.
I feel like that was a good setup.
I need to pay you to write mine. This is great. This is great.
It does seem to be that no one likes writing their own bio.
No.
But I like giving a kicky bio for people.
Everyone likes hearing someone else read it. So thank you.
So why a third? Like, what pulled you toward a third in the super graphic books? Are these I would say entirely, like, there is text within it, but these stylish graphic presentations of minutia details and occurrences and themes throughout the topics that you explore. Marvel Comics. Why did you go back into it for the MCU this time around?
Well, this one's it's Marvel Comics.
Yes.
So it's not the films, but it's just the comics.
Yes.
And that, everyone has like a first love, right? And for me, Marvel Comics, that was it for me. I loved Marvel Comics. That was my first real introduction into the comic book world. My first comics were Spider-Man. Then I got hooked into X-Men, and I just loved it. I love it. I love all comics, but like that, Marvel was the one for me. And I wasn't a sports guy. I wasn't sports. It's like, what do you do when you're a kid? You're at school. It's like, and you're not playing sports. And I like to draw, but if comics, I kind of help me find a community, right? And I liked the books, but I also they ended up releasing these trading cards, Marvel comic book trading cards, like Marvel Universe Series 1. And I started to get into these trading cards, and I opened them up, and on the back, it says like, they have the cards for different characters like Wolverine or Cyclops, whatever. And on the back, they have like these little power ratings.
Okay.
Right? So it's like their strength is a 4 and their speed is a 6. I don't know. But that was really my first introduction into like charts as well. And so it's like, what do these power ratings mean? Who are these characters? And obviously they have the big characters as well, but also the really smaller ones. And you kind of go through, I collected them all and was like, I don't know who the chameleon is, but I know he's got a 6 power rating. It's like, I want to know more about who this character is. Or they'll reference some storyline. I was like, well, I haven't read that. What is that? And so they kind of helped me open my eyes to more of the Marvel Comics world. And I kind of wanted to do that. Like, that was kind of one of my goals in making the book. Is kind of make it as an introduction for people to explore the Marvel universe more. It's kind of like help people spark something to go to find more.
Well, and I was you also came up through Complex when I would say Complex was kind of at its peak in terms of like cultural awareness and its sort of influence, and that was a really like the covers of Complex were works of art and an incredibly design and aesthetic focused publication, like really caught your eye. And so when you started coming into that early on in your career, what like with this. I think you worked on the Kanye cover with that incredible, like the grayscale with like the disco ball eyes. When you were working on that in the beginning of your career, what were you learning about? Like, you know, you had an impact made on you by these little trading cards with these like little graphics and charts on the back. When you got into doing this as a career, what did you start learning about the communicative power of aesthetic and design?
Well, the Complex stuff was really interesting because I was really thankful that my boss, the editor-in-chief, Noah, had a very similar sensibility and was a huge fan of comics as well. And so he and I were always trying to figure out how we get comics, how can we combine these two things, like photos and art, and really work together and try to make something special and something unique. You mentioned that Kanye cover. So
what a timeline. What an arc of history.
So when we did that, he was very involved for the whole process. And, you know, nothing happened without, you know, his involvement, because he was just really he cared so much about the product that he wanted to be really involved. So we did we did the shoot and we did the story, did everything, we designed it. And then we heard one day that he's coming into the office. We're like, oh, okay. He wants to check out the feature story. Like, okay, cool. I'm sitting in my office. They're like, okay, Kanye's coming in. I was like, okay. So I'm sitting at my desk. My editor comes in. Kanye comes in. And they kind of just sit behind my computer. And like on the little ledge behind my computer, I'm like, okay, pull up the feature story. I was like, okay, here. You know, we show him the thing. And it's just kind of silence. He hasn't said anything at this point. And then he's just like, who did this? Who did this? And he's like, you've fundamentally compromised the creative integrity of this entire project. Difference of opinion, but okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, let's talk about it. And so we just kind of talked about what he liked and what he didn't like and what was kind of bothering him. And so in that 10 minutes, kind of just redesigned the whole feature, you know, with him watching behind me. But it worked out and he liked it in the end. So
yeah, I mean, I would certainly describe the end result as an iconic cover, but like having been a part of like working at a publication with you, I also know that your instincts are pretty good, and you've won, you know, you and your teams have won enough Society of Professional Designers awards to prove that you also have a good sense of things, but you're also a great collaborator.
People are passionate. People are passionate.
Well, okay, I think passionate is a great segue into the character movie that you brought, which really was I thought it was a zag. And I'm so excited to talk about this.
I'm so pleased that I was able to zag.
Yeah. I mean, tell us the character in the movie that you have brought for us to discuss today.
I brought Cooper, Matthew McConaughey's character Cooper from Interstellar.
Now, I texted you when I was watching it, and I was like, well, it turns out like watching Interstellar when you're older means just crying intermittently throughout the movie this time around. And you texted back that you were having a similar experience, and that was how you were watching it later was not how you received it the first time you saw it in theaters.
That was part of it. That was part of why I chose it, because that came out, I think, in 2014. I was just married that year. I think it was also just coming after Interstellar. Or sorry, coming after Inception.
Oh yeah, yes.
Right, and so I feel like that was just like such a huge high for me on Nolan. I love all of his films.
Yeah,
and I've seen them all. But you know, Inception, I felt like just really clicked for me, and so I was just like so hyped for Interstellar.
Yeah,
and then I watched it. I was like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, he's very talented. This man.
I liked it. I liked it, but it didn't really click for me. And so I was like, I liked it, but it didn't hit me the same way.
I think I had the same experience watching it. I was like, I'm very impressed, and this is like a museum piece that I'm appreciating from a distance.
Yeah. But I didn't have that feeling. And then a couple years ago, I was streaming somewhere. I rewatched it. I was like, and I was just bawling.
Yeah.
through the whole. I was like crying so much, and I was like, "This is not the same. Like, the film has not changed. I have changed." And I felt like, oh, I'm a different person. Like I am a completely different person now. And this is all just hitting me just so differently.
Well, and like you've become a parent since that. I haven't, but I'm still sitting there just like weeping at this movie. So obviously like that feels like there is an immediate sort of different attachment to this character and his relationships within the movie. But then like you don't even have to have kids of your own to be watching it and be like, wow, this is really leveling. Like what did you find? Did you start considering what the differences at all were between Tim first Interstellar experience and then like, wow, I've changed actually. Obviously the movie is the same, but I am not the same.
I think the big thing and like the obvious thing is that I have 2 kids now.
Sure.
And he has 2 kids in the movie. I feel like that is it. I remember watching the trailer for the first time and even like back in 2013 when they probably start releasing things, I remember getting choked up at parts of the trailer.
Yeah.
Like when he's telling his daughter Murph that he's going to leave and she's just like, when are you coming back? And he just doesn't know. And she's
that
just
scene
like,
in the truck and him just stoic but teary-eyed, welling up.
Totally.
Coming back.
When?
One for you. One for me. When I'm up there in hypersleep. Or traveling near the speed of light. Or near a black hole. Time's gonna change for me. And it's gonna run more slowly. Now, when we get back, we're gonna compare.
Time will run differently for us?
Yeah. I mean, by the time I get back, we might even be the same age. You and me. What? Imagine that. Ah, Murph.
You have no idea when you're coming back. No idea. Oh!
I remember that getting me like 11, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's only amplified now. But now it's just like, oh my God, I was just like crying. And like that was just the first time, right? And that's like the act 1, right? And it's like it hasn't, just wait.
Now, do you find like there's a sort of the through line we have of Cooper? There's that John Lithgow plays his father-in-law who lives with him and his kids, and the world of Interstellar in this is it's not post-apocalyptic yet, but we're like in the process of an apocalypse on Earth in Interstellar.
Yeah.
The world is being choked out by clouds and storms of dust. Nothing can grow anymore. People are either slowly starving or suffocating to death, and we either need to figure out how to move people to another, Earth replacement, or we need to colonize. The plan A is move people there, and now that we figured out interstellar travel, and plan B is, well, no one here is going to make it, so we're going to seed a new planet with we're going to incubate people.
Right.
Matthew McConaughey he is the NASA trained pilot who ends up being the only guy who can fly this mission.
So thankful that he happens.
Yeah, and there's this. I love the scene between him and John Lithgow, his father-in-law, where he says to him, he's like, Coop, you seem, you were either born 40 years too early or 40 years too late. And basically at this point, people are only raised to be farmers because that's what we need. We need food. And he is one of the few people left who went through a program and has the training with tools he never got to do anything with to pilot a NASA mission, basically.
You're the one who doesn't belong. Born 40 years too late or 40 years too early. My daughter knew it, God bless her. And your kids know it, especially Murph.
Well, we used to look up in the sky and wonder at our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt.
Cooper, you were good at something. And you never got a chance to do anything with it. I'm sorry.
Now, are you an adventurer of the sort that Cooper is? Or do you feel this pull to what we're doing next? I think of you as a very driven individual. And if you're sort of like a restless object, you will find a way to self-produce something that assuages that restlessness. And I feel like Cooper is sort of a similar man in that fact.
I would like to think so.
I would like to think I'm going to save humanity.
I would like to think so. I mean, certainly not perhaps in a physical way that Matthew McConaughey is in this movie. Mm-hmm. But at least trying to strategize and do something. Mm-hmm. Like Michelle Obama says, do something. Yeah. Right?
I've also always kind of known you as somebody with you and your oft creative partner, Laura Hudson, who one day I plan on having on the show as well. One of the great writers and thinkers and talkers I've ever met. Both of you, I think, more than any people I've ever met, have this sort of self-generative capacity in you where the amount of hours, the amount of dedication, sort of the amount of commitment to something is completely ancillary to the fact of it just getting done.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know how that has sort of evolved from New Yorker hard driving in your probably early mid-20s to life now, dad, parent, many multiple obligations.
I mean, it's still there. Mm-hmm. It's still there. And I think, at least for me, it has to be. Mm-hmm. I feel incomplete without it. I feel like I have to be able to produce something for myself. Mm-hmm. It's not that family isn't fulfilling and it's not that work isn't fulfilling, but it has to be part of it, right? Those just can't be the only things, as fulfilling as they are. I just feel like I always have to have something because the wheels are always spinning.
Yes.
Right? And it's just I feel like I'm just going to go crazy if I just don't try to release that energy into something. Mm-hmm. And it has changed, right? Because I think I was going 120% when I lived in New York.
Yeah.
Now I live in LA. I have a family. I have kids. It's still there, but I think it has to be more balanced. More balance. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Well, my one of my favorite examples of this is when we were both at Wired. There was a project, basically 48-hour magazine, where you had to you had 48 hours to a staff pull together an entire publication. And you were the lead designer on it. And it's 48 hours. Some people get a little nap in here and there. Some people don't sleep at all. And I took my little brief few hours of sleep on a couch in the Wired office. And I came back in and I saw you in the kitchen area exactly where you were when I had left you 4 to 5 hours earlier, sitting in the exact same position at the computer. And I was like, Tim, did you rest at all? And you just don't need to. You didn't break your eyes from the screen at all. And you were just locked in and working. And I feel it's kind of this Android setting to click into work mode.
That was fun.
That was very fun.
That was really fun. When in 2004 or something like that, and you mentioned I started this magazine, Comic Foundry, back in the day. When that was first just a website, it took, this is early days, WordPress, digital publishing. It took forever for me I was a one-man operation. It took me forever to update the website. Mm-hmm. We would post every week or once a month, I guess. I don't know. But it would take me forever. And I would be up to 3 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And so I would just be exhausted. And so as a way to try to figure out how to train my body to function like that, I would just stay up till 3 o'clock every day for 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
Just to kind of condition my body to be able to function in that capacity so I can do that and it just doesn't just kill me. And so I find that I don't need a lot of sleep. I love sleep and it's great.
Yeah.
But I don't require a ton of it.
And when did you start, obviously, you start a publication dedicated to something. It's more than a hobby. The amount of, training your body to stay up till 3 a.m. to run this publication, in part to help, equip your body to run this publication based on something you love, which is comics. When did you start connecting with those fictional characters? And what did you realize those sort of fictional characters were doing for you over the time of getting really invested in these worlds?
I think we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I do think it was community, right? Trying to find a place where you fit in and that you can help see yourself. And I think when I was a kid, it was comics. And that's where that was a through line in my friends group is that we were all liked comic books. And I just love the medium.
Yeah.
I just love the medium. I love the idea this mixture of art and writing, and I like that it's ecstatic, but it's also interactive in that so much happens in between the panels, and that happens like in your brain, right? And so it's like your brain is kind of helping take you from panel to panel, and it's I don't know. I really like that interactivity. It's just a really fun medium. I love it.
Well, and I think like I was thinking about like, you know, watching Interstellar and thinking of it in the context of you, and then trying to like, and then kind of thinking of like second batch of career of like Oppenheimer's a bit of a break from it, but like sort of second batch of career of Christopher Nolan. You have movies like Interstellar, Inception, Tenet, Dunkirk, where these are movies that even like there's plenty of dialogue at Inception, there's plenty of dialogue at Interstellar, but these movies feel like their iconography and their sort of mythicness lives and dies on the way that you remember them looking on screen. Screen, movies, visual medium, who knew? But like also I remember when when Interstellar was coming out and when Dunkirk came out, there was conversation around the side where it was like, you can't hear what these people are saying sometimes. Like the sound is drowning them out. And Christopher Nolan's response to that was basically like, yeah, I oversaw the sound mix and the theater is not broken. This is exactly what it is meant to be. And these are movies where at times his love of it being a truly like a visual sonic medium and the marriage of those two things, they are the more powerful and evocative storytelling agents than perhaps explaining a story to you outright through dialogue. And yours has been a career of explaining, of educating, of connecting, of empathizing with, like back when you started taking in comics and then when you started designing at publications, and, you know, all design is storytelling, but you taking it to a more literal sense of like working at publications, like working in editorial context as well. And so I wanted to hear from you about that sort of continued relationship with like the evocativeness of design, and that being not necessarily overwriting, but like perhaps the more powerful supplement to at times like literal dialogue storytelling.
Yeah, like design is storytelling, right? Design is storytelling, like good design, right? And I feel like, at least in magazines, right? Like a lot of these examples come in magazines. My goal was to just make sure that if you're buying the magazine, you're getting your money's worth. And we were always looking to find ways to elevate the design to kind of bring the readers in, to make it feel special. And really try to help tell the story, not only through the words, right, but through the design, and make it feel immersive and make it feel special and make it feel worth it. Because if we're going to make it, like, let's just go all the way. Let's go all the way. And sometimes that would mean, especially when we were a weekly magazine, we're like, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
Let's just swing for the fences. Worst case scenario, we put out another issue next week.
Yeah.
Right? Worst case,
yeah,
we're lining someone's bird feeder
yeah,
in recycling, right? Worst case, we'll just do it again. And so we're like, yeah, why wouldn't we try? Like, let's just go for it. And sometimes, yes, way too much. In retrospect, too much. Let's pull it back.
It's time for a break, but we will be right back with more from Tim Leong. From superheroes to space, the final frontier of our interview. And then I will have one quick thing before I go about a topic with its own similarly extensive and gargantuan, kaiju-sized really, footprint in pop culture, Godzilla -1, which I finally saw and I just want to gush about for a minute. So stick around at the end for that. We love making feelings seen, and we can only do it because of support from Maximum Fun members. If that's you, thank you! And if not, I'm thrilled to tell you that you can become a member at any time. And when you become a member at just $5 a month, you get access to the entire library of bonus content from all Maximum Fun shows going back years. You're a Feeling Seen fan, so you'll want to head straight to our bonus content, which includes episodes from my own personal Feeling Seen pick. And now we have our ongoing series about erotic thrillers, Catastrophic Thirst. We've already talked about a couple of the craziest erotic thrillers around, and we have got more guests lined up, like Janet Varney, Drea Clark, and director Jade Halley Bartlett. You know you want all of that and more, and all you have to do to get it is join MaximumFun.org/join. That's where you go. Thank you for coming on board, and we hope to see many more of you here soon. And so something I was thinking about with a particular scene that I wanted to hone in on with Interstellar for Cooper was there is the scene where he's in, I think it's like I think they refer to it as the Tesseract, when he's basically in like the fifth dimension library. It's such an insane, like it's an insane scene for many reasons, but there is the part where he's like, we see the moment from earlier in the movie where we understand how Murph was having a quote-unquote ghost in her room.
Yeah.
And it turns out that ghost was her future dad communicating with her through space and time, through use of gravity, which, you know, the movie will unpack for you. But he begins that scene by screaming at her, like, get me to stay, Murph. He's like pleading with her to stay.
Make him stay, Merv. Don't let me leave, Merv. Don't let me leave, Merv. No!
Convince dad to stay because I never should have left because there's no solution and you're all just going to die anyway. But then, in the same scene, he comes to the realization that he can, in fact, teach her how to save humanity. So I wanted to hear from you about, like, where are you at emotionally watching this movie as Cooper is screaming at Murph to get him to stay? As he's, like, sob screaming through his space helmet to the image of his probably, like, 13-year-old daughter to, like, change the course of time and get me to stay. Don't let me go.
So in the course of every single day, like as a parent, I'm making, 1,000 decisions, right? And you just hope that every one you make is going to be the right one for your kids, right? And it's like, it could be big things from like, where do they go to school to what shoes do we buy to what are we going to pack? What are we having for lunch? And like, their diet. And in every little and big decision, you're like, man, I hope I'm doing this right.
Yeah.
And you're often not, right? And so it's just like, I just see this and he's like, he's wrong. Like he's making all these big literally life or death decisions for the entire human race.
Yeah.
And he's wrong on a lot of them.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just see that and it's just like, man, it's like, that definitely clicked with me. And he's like doing his best and he's making the best decisions, but he's definitely messing up. And you're just trying to do the best you can, and it's like no matter what, like you just have to go with your gut, and just make the best informed decision you can, and like just know that you're not always going to get it right. It's like seeing him, fail and just like struggle with these like ginormous decisions. I don't know, it just really, really clicked.
You need like narrative tension and everything, but the amount that they are kind of wrong and making the wrong decision in this movie, I actually find to be something that feels very true. It doesn't feel like it's contrived for the drama. Like, Anne Hathaway making the wrong choice about something, Matthew McConaughey making the wrong choice about something, Michael Caine just lying to everybody. There are a billion wrong choices in the scope of this story, and there is only one right path. And so it is more reasonable that they would choose incorrectly because there are a billion opportunities for them to have done that. And it feels far more realistic that they would make those errors than they would be like, you know what, we got the calculations and we crushed it. And so watching that, it felt like it was amazing to watch something like it's amazing to watch something feel so sensational, but also feel like that sensation is almost what grounds it, because it's like, no, peril is what is certain here. And success is the miracle.
Yeah.
And so that's something I find very like, for as, big and out in space as this movie is, it feels like it succeeds as a family drama to me more than anything else at this point in my life.
Yeah. I think showcasing all of those flaws like makes it more human, right? And that definitely connected me. And that's a really interesting perspective about like in the course of the film, like there's one right path.
One right path in this.
Yeah.
Humanity survives one way, and every other combination of circumstances in the universe is peril.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
That's insane. this is something, and as a not parent, I feel like maybe this is why I ask about it. But like there's the part where Matthew McConaughey is saying that like before his wife passed, and which is why he's a single father, he like that his wife said to him like once they brought their kids home, like, you know, and that we're parents now, so like our job is to be memories for our children.
After your kids came along, your mom, she said something to me I never quite understood. She said, now, we're just here to be memories for our kids. I think I now understand what she meant. Once you're a parent, you're the ghost of your children's future.
What do you think about that? Because I feel like it's this in the 2024 mindset. I feel like particularly among like sort of like moms and mothers asserting personhood and being like, you know, I'm not just a factory for babies and like I have wants and needs and desires, but like the children are the party, you got to make them survive. Like, what is your thought on that assertion? Like, it's a very poetic movie line, but like I hear it and I'm like, I don't know if I'm fully with that.
I agree. I tend to agree. Like I was like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to understand what that means. I'm like, as I'm watching it. And I was like, I have to come back to that. I have to come back to that one. And
work back to it. We've come back to it, Tim.
I guess I don't agree with that, at least for me, because like it feels almost like there's a level of absence
okay.
there. And I don't know, I'm hoping, maybe it's hopeful, that I'd like to be there.
Yeah.
Or that they want me to be there. But it's so, yeah, for me, it felt like there was like a separation of sorts. And maybe that's not what it means, because even, you know, the older your kids get, the less you see them anyway. And then, so there's that. But that part of it didn't quite resonate with me.
Yeah, it feels like it's like I experienced it as like, oh, that's a pretty line to hear. Like the way that line reading is being delivered is like, that's nice. But it was like, but like, you know, agree to disagree on this one. Because I don't like the idea that the difference you make singularly would be focused in the lives of the kids, or it kind of like, I feel like it narrows the scope of what people can influence kind of like a little too far. It's like, no, but we still have spheres of influence and impact in our lives that we're accountable to, even if there's a priority accountability. And I don't necessarily want to take that entirely off the table. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be necessarily responsible for the survival of all humanity. Like, I don't want to be the one in the fifth dimension saying, like, here's how we save us and perpetuate the species. But it, like, feels like a good idea to be responsible to more than just, like, a couple people. Like, because again, like, it had been so long since I had watched this, because, again, the first time I did, I was like, that was impressive.
Yeah.
But, like, not when I wanted to revisit. It's also, like, you know, it's, like, 3 hours long. The scene where they're having to, like, when you are on the ocean planet and you know that the stakes of that are every hour is 7 years of time passing via relativity, the laws of relativity. Like, do you, like, in your heart of hearts, or you're like, yeah, I definitely know I could go down onto the planet and sacrifice the time, or are you somebody who's trying to stay on the ship? Or are you like, I'm going to solve gravity up here?
I'd like to think I'm a person that's going. I'd like to think I'm someone that could try to help him step up. I don't know if that's, you know, I don't know if that's correct. You know, take me to the wave planet and we'll see. But I'd like to think that. I'd like to think that as someone that can try to help step up, especially if you're trying to help other people.
Yeah.
You know, not for like glory or whatever, but like in service of trying to save your family. Yeah.
No, that is I forgot that was, you know, another thing. Like, I just forgotten so many things about experiencing this movie, but like watching it again, and I think that might be the thing I'm single most looking forward to seeing it again on a big screen one day, is those waves. Just waves the size of mountains coming at you.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, that mountain range. We're like,
Wreckage. Where's the rest?
Where's the mountains?
Those aren't mountains. They're waves.
that's no mountain.
Yeah, that's no mountain, and we're gonna need a bigger boat. And we're gonna need a bigger boat. I too, like, the ending is so... hey guys, I'm going to spoil Interstellar, but like for him to be reunited with Murph, and they just only have like a minute together really before she's dying. She's very old. At this point, she's probably almost 100. And, you know, she gets to see him one last time, and she's like, a parent shouldn't have to watch their child die. Like, you should go. Like, this is the end for me, basically.
Nobody believed me, but I knew he'd come back.
How?
Because my dad promised me.
I'm here now, Murph. I'm here.
No. No parent should have to watch their own child die. I have my kids here for me now. You go.
Where?
And he kind of like, he tries to sit on his porch at the recreation of his farmstead house that they've made on this like planet, this like interstellar base station where they're keeping people preserved before they move to a new planet. And he says like he's not comfortable with this, like acting like we are where we used to be.
Yeah.
And he wants to see what we're doing next and where we're going to. Are you a sit on the porch guy, or are you a next adventure guy?
Next adventure.
Next adventure.
Yeah.
Next adventure, Cooper.
I mean, yeah. Because like you've done it, right? And I feel like I'm someone that gets bored, right? After doing the same thing for too long, it's like you have there's always that itch, right? That itch to figure out what's next, to find more. Don't you have that that don't you have that like that need, that drive?
Yes, no, I know what you mean, and it's surreal to watch. Like it's very cool to do it. Obviously, it's a Christopher Nolan movie, but like it's a big like cylindrical like tube of a station where they are, where like gravity glues them to the ground wherever they're standing. But like you see like these huge like almost like pipes of like farmland coming up around this house.
It's so cool. The set design of that is so beautiful.
Yeah, and like the black hole. Like when they're riding along the edge of like the event horizon, just like experiencing time bending. It was I came away from this being like, I think this is actually my favorite Matthew McConaughey performance. This and like probably, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The New Generation from the mid-90s.
With the TV remote controls?
That's the one where he's an insane murderer. He's one of the Sawyer family.
Is he with the leg thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The crazy leg thing.
Yeah.
I think the two poles of Matthew McConaughey for me are Next Generation, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Interstellar.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Okay.
I mean, you get a taste for the man's range going on in there. But I found myself like watching this being like, I don't need to actually, because like I don't really understand what they're talking about with the fifth dimension and the Tesseract or anything like that. But I didn't care because like the emotion at the center of it was doing everything for me that I needed to do. Are you somebody who digs into a movie like this and you're like going to read about articles about the science of it, or are you like, no, I'm going on the vibes?
No.
Yeah.
It's like I was like, I don't fully understand what just happened in this aspect, but that's okay. I don't need to, and you don't have to. You know, it's like you don't need to understand. It's like in Doctor Who, it's like, oh, it's the timey wimey, like just kind of a hand wave it, right? Like you don't really need to know. Yeah, I don't think that's necessary because like it's the emotion that's pulling you through, and I feel like just trying to dig into it is just going to spoil it. And I'm sure they do lay it out clearly in very subtle ways to kind of explain it. It's like, if I don't get it, that's fine. It's not. It doesn't make the experience any less for me.
Have you found that it is a common thing in perhaps revisiting movies, maybe even that you loved like at a certain instance? Have you found that going back to them, is it a frequent occurrence that things that had some sort of impression on you, that the change in you has greatly affected the response of that movie in watching it on later viewings? Or is it only like kind of certain titles?
You know, one that really was different for me is that we were rewatching Lion King. And you watch it when you're a kid and it's like, oh, yeah, Simba. And I was like, yeah, I'm not Simba in this. I'm too old to be Simba. Now I'm like Mustafa, or like hopefully not Scar, but like
right.
I think I'm like Mustafa, not to make myself like ego, but like having a kid. And,
no, for sure.
And it's just like, oh, this is very different. I'm gonna watch Interstellar in like 10 years, and I'm like, oh, I'm John Lithgow.
I'm John Lithgow. That is no. That's I'm 39 now, and it is very. Like, for one thing, like, horror movies hit me entirely differently because I'm just more sensitive to things. Like, the reality of how scary things actually are is, I still enjoy them and I still seek them out. The way that they hit me is actually far more intense now than they used to. But it is crazy when you find yourself... I revisited the Joy Luck Club for the first time in ages for someone coming on the pod recently, Chris Grace. And I was like, I'm not an immigrant woman in my 60s or 70s, but I was watching it being like, I am actually like, I'm so much more aligning with like the stories of the mothers in these movies and the ones who have lived all of this life. And it is meaning so much more to me to find out what they have been through. And it's a fascinating thing being a consumer of culture to reevaluate who you are in stories when you perhaps so potently aligned with someone else, someone younger at a different time in your life.
Yeah. And I think that's just part of the magic of film and how those repeat viewings, they change, right? Like they're not changing, but like we've changed. And I don't know. I love that. I love that.
We need to have this conversation again in 10 to 15 years when you are John Lithgow.
I don't know if it's going to take 10 years. The way that I'm going.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us in this time and in this place about Interstellar, Tim. I am very grateful to have had you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is wonderful.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you so much to Tim Leong for this stellar interview. Tim's book, Marvel Super Graphic, A Visual Guide to the Marvel Comics Universe, is out now, and you can purchase it online or at your local bookstore. And now, that one quick thing before I go. Guys, I gotta say, it was recently the Beyond Fest Film Festival here in Los Angeles. We are so lucky to have it. It was the most jam-packed, supersized year ever, and what a better way to populate a supersized film festival than with the most supersized beast of all, Godzilla. I loved Shin Godzilla so much, and that does not make me special or unique. It means I saw that movie and recognized it is absolutely tremendous. A fantastic creature feature, a fantastic Godzilla movie, a fantastic satire of bureaucracy, straight up great film across the board. So when Godzilla -1 came out, when it was announced with trailers, I was so excited for it. Then when it came out, I missed it in theaters. Y'all, Godzilla -1 is on Netflix. And special bonus treat, you can watch the regular color version, or you can watch Godzilla -1 minus color, which is in black and white, which really fits the fact that it is a post-World War II creature feature drama. Like, we are coming into Japan, into the ruins of so many parts of the country following World War II, which is when Godzilla surfaces and starts tromping his way through Ginza and on his way to Tokyo, and it's an incredible drama. It is an incredible monster movie. It is an incredible war movie. This movie should have been nominated for Best Picture. Like, this I'm not kidding, but this is one of the best movies that came out last year. Full stop. I wept. I leaned forward in my chair in awe with my chin agape. Wow, wow, wow. Godzilla -1. Do yourself a favor. If you don't want to wait till you can catch it in a theater, which is a dicey proposition, who knows? Watch this on Netflix. It is providing it for you, and they have both. They have both regular Godzilla -1 and -1 minus color. You can watch either of them. You can watch both of them. And I highly recommend that you do, because Shin and -1 are amazing movies. These are thinking man's creature features. And that's it. Going deep on nerd business. That's our show today. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at FeelingSeenPod, or send us an email at feelingseen@maximumfun.org. If you want to follow me, I'm Jorcrew on Twitter, JORCRU. Our theme music is by Andrew Epen. The show is produced by Danielle Huesias, and our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, as always. And this, is a production of Maximum Fun.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported directly by you.